population in which the Indigenous, the poor and the mentally ill are overrepresented. Where isolation, humiliation and degradation are facts of life. Welcome to prison.
It depends who's telling the story, I suppose. The prisoners would have one view, the people who work in the prison system would have another, and I think it's up to people to decide where the truth is.
Give government propaganda and the media spin doctors the flick. And check out Doin' Time for news, views and tunes on prison issues from Guantanamo Bay to Christmas Island to prisons and detention centres everywhere. Every Monday at 4 p.m. on your community radio 3CR.
We are still fired up and we're still talking about revolution.
Hello and welcome to the Doin' Time show. This is 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. This is Marissa and we'll be taking you through until 5 o'clock this evening, and we've also got Peter in the studio as well.
Hi everyone.
Yeah, so first up on the show we're going to be speaking with Claire Seppings, who's a regular Doin' Time contributor and a criminal justice expert, Churchill Fellow, and she has written a report and has come in here regularly to speak about her research in regards to incarceration and the lived experience of prison. And then following on from that, we'll be speaking with Sadja, who is a member of Flemington Kennington's Community Legal Centre Peer Advocacy Team, and she works to end racial profiling, and she'll be speaking about racial profiling itself, and she'll also speak about the Milo event last year and what happened at the protest, and give a little bit of a brief summary in regards to the strong police presence and draconian measures that took place at that Milo protest. So, yeah, and she'll give a bit of background about that international speaker with his fascist principles. So, yeah, we'll be having a little bit of an announcement now, and we'll go from there.
Estás sintonizando 3CR 855 de tu dial AM.
صدای ما را از رادیو 3CR 855 AM میشنوید.
Kính thưa quý vị, đây là đài phát thanh 3CR trên làn sóng AM 855. Kính mời quý vị đón nghe.
Waa tahay waxaad naga dhageysanaysaan waa raadiyaha jaaliyadaha ee 3CR mowjadiisa 855 AM.
Each week, 3CR broadcasts over 130 programs in 25 languages, supporting communities and viewpoints that you just don't hear about anywhere else. Subscribe to your award-winning multilingual community radio station, 3CR, and help keep these voices on the airwaves. Call the station on 94198377. The number is again 94198377.
We will not negotiate with minor state of title government or anyone on our culture, on our land. You know, if people say, oh, you're going to finish up with nothing, well then so be it. But at least our hearts will tell us that we did not sell out our country and our culture and heritage for a few scungy dollars.
Subscribe to 3CR so that your dollars support Indigenous voices and the struggle for land justice.
For Aboriginal people, the greatest grief of all is seeing the country destroyed. And somewhere along the line, we have to realise that we don't actually have the right to do that, that nothing we've ever done has given us the right to do that. Now, you know where I stand on this, because I'm so simple-minded. I think we've just got to admit that this is an Aboriginal country. Just do it.
Wind upon the waters and the shadows as the leaves are blown. When that old wind moans on a weary winter Sunday, like a friend that keeps on knocking at my home. I've been moved watching nature slowly turning through the seasons and the patterns that she brings. And as the morning star precedes the breaking of a new day. You find the black crow is already on the wing. I've been moved by the crying of the newborn, the honey sweetness of the air in spring. I watch the moonlight flood across them sleepy hills and valleys. I heard the sadness in a requiem. I've been moved watching something that's been suffering, be it humankind or any living thing. From the fury of the storm, that old parched ground is reborn, and the desert's blooms that satisfy a king. I've been moved by the tireless sea a churning, or them scarlets of an inland dusk. Oh, when a close friend has died, I turned away and cried as they laid him down and shoveled in the dust.
Help 3CR support the rights of Indigenous Australians.
They mean to save our culture and save our dreamings, our footprints, dreamings, our songline, and keep our culture going strong.
Of course, a lot of the Aboriginals, having been stolen, were put into state care, and also others
recognition of what our people have been through in the last 200 years, the recognition of our culture in the last 40,000 years, and the recognition of where we are heading into the future.
Welcome to Survival Day, Invasion Day. 223 years ago, the white man landed on our shores.
Subscribe to 3CR and help keep Indigenous voices on air. Call us on 94198377 or visit 3cr.org.au. Subscribe now.
And you're back with the Doing Time show, and we're still trying to get on to Claire Seppings. We were going to be speaking about an article that was written by the Canadian CBC and looking at solitary confinement. But anyway, we may be speaking with her or Sadja, depending on who we can get first. But in the meantime, is that lined up yet, Pete? Not yet. Well, we may as well play another song while that's happening. I mean, the Doing Time show is also famous for its promoting great Aboriginal music. And Peter and I were just listening to a sample of a song by Coffin, which is a fantastic Aboriginal band.
Yeah, a few Aboriginal people are in it.
Aboriginal people are in it. It's a mixture of, different cultures, but and it's punk music at its best, and a very strong political message there. But just to say that there is a language warning, just to let listeners know that. And the song is called White Dog. So listen to this music and see what you think while you're waiting for our next interview. And I'll just put that on in a sec. And you're back with the Doing Time show. And while we're waiting for our interview, we've got about 6 minutes. I'll just read out a bit of an article from the Sydney Criminal, Australia. And this is a bit of work that Justice Action has done. We've interviewed them quite a few times on this show. So now it's crossing over to the Australian experience. Criminal Justice Australia to implement protections against prisoner abuse by Paul Gregor. And after signing the optional protocol to the Convention Against Torture in 2009, the Australian government finally ratified the international treaty on December 15th. The nation is now obligated to enhance oversight in its places of detention to prevent the mistreatment and abuse of people who have lost their liberty. Random independent inspections of facilities such as prisons, juvenile justice centres, secure mental health facilities and immigration detention centres will be carried out by local inspection bodies called National Preventative Mechanisms. And the United Nations Subcommittee on the Prevention of Torture will also inspect these closed environments and report their findings back to the federal government. Institutional Torture Exposed Justice Action Coordinator Brett Collins described the Australian ratification of the treaty as well overdue. The long-time prisoners' rights activist has been representing Australian inmates and involuntary mental health patients at local OPCAT conferences since an initial meeting in 2009. It's embarrassing that Australia has lagged behind many other much smaller countries who accepted the responsibilities they had under the treaty, he said. Indeed, as of April, 83 other nations had already ratified the document. Mr Collins recalled that at an OPCAT workshop in December 2016, former Australian Attorney General George Brandis clearly admitted the government had decided to ratify the agreement due to negative international attention over the Dondale Youth Detention Centre revelations. Although the mistreatment of youth detainees at Dondale had been reported in 2014, the incidence of torture at the facility didn't gain national exposure until mid-2016. These included episodes of prolonged solitary confinement, tear gassing and the shackling of a hooded boy to a chair. A fresh watchdog. Since 1979, Justice Action has been tracking abuses of authority in Australian correctional facilities. The independent organisation is in constant consultation with inmates across the country, and this input from the inside has informed its recommendations during OPCAT negotiations. And right from the start, when OPCAT representatives from Geneva came to Sydney in 2009, as well as when Brandis ran the 2016 workshop, Mr Collins has made clear that NPMs will only be effective if the whole inspection system is overhauled and current inspectors are no longer utilised. The inspector bodies will need to be fresh and not merely rebadged existing inspectors, Collins explained. He went on to outline that the entire system needs to change, as any abuses of power already present are being carried out under existing monitoring procedures. Key prisoner recommendations at an OPCAT roundtable held in Sydney on June the 8th. Mr Collins made clear that as far as inmates were concerned, there are structural changes that need to take place within the prison system in order for NPMs to be useful. Otherwise, nothing will improve. And Justice Action put forth 3 key recommendations that, if applied, would ensure that the implementation of OPCAT provisions would make improvements to the system. The most important recommendation was to make sure that prisoners' voices are fully supported, Collins outlined, and this should be done by utilising the prisoner representative committees that already exist within every correctional facility across the country. These committees should be a part of the OPCAT structure and report directly to the NPMs. As Collins explained, individual inmates shouldn't have to report their mistreatment. Rather, it should be the job of committee representatives to bring any abuses to the attention of authorities. Direct electronic communication. According to Collins, in all high security units in Australia, there's a CCTV camera in the corner of each cell, and these devices are currently being used by prison staff to monitor the movements for inmates. But what Justice Action proposed at the OPCAT round table was that these cameras should be used as communication pathway devices that link prisoners with the NPMs via the Office of the Commonwealth Ombudsman, which is the authority that's been appointed NPM coordinator. Prisoners should also be able to contact the NPMs through this link via a computer in their cell that would allow them to make complaints directly. This would not only improve prison monitoring, Mr Collins explained, but it would also provide inmates with direct recourse in cases of mistreatment. An independent representative body. The third recommendation made on behalf of detainees at the OPCAT roundtable was that an independent organisation should be set up to represent prisoners' concerns. Justice Action is fulfilling this role at present, but it believes a more clearly defined body must be established. This non-government organisation would ensure that full compliance with the OPCAT takes place and that prisoners' rights are being upheld. It would also assist in the rehabilitation of inmates and with their resettlement back into society. This elective and responsive external organisation would have sufficient funding to maintain its role, Mr Collins told Sydney criminal lawyers, and it would work closely with the Commonwealth Ombudsman in monitoring our obligations under OPCAT. Preventing further abuse. The OPCAT round table consisted of 28 representatives from various civil society organisations, including refugee advocacy networks, Indigenous organisations and community legal centres. Mr Collins said he believes the recommendations that were made on behalf of Australian prisoners will be taken up. The representatives from the Commonwealth Ombudsman's office who were present at the meeting assured him the points would be taken into account. Australian Human Rights Commissioner Edward Santow chaired the meeting. And if people want to have a look at the full article, they can do so by going on the Justice Action website to have a look at that. And when we do our podcasting, we'll be putting full details of that website so people can have a look. We'll go into an announcement and hopefully we'll be doing our next interview with Sadja.
We will not negotiate with minor state of title government or anyone on our culture, on our land. You know, if people say, oh, you're going to finish up with nothing, well then so be it. But at least our hearts will tell us that we did not sell out our country and our culture and heritage for a few scungy dollars.
Subscribe to 3CR so that your dollars support Indigenous voices and the struggle for land justice.
For Aboriginal people, the greatest grief of all is seeing the country destroyed. And somewhere along the line, we have to realise that we don't actually have the right to do that, that nothing we've ever done has given us the right to do that. Now, you know where I stand on this, because I'm so simple-minded. I think we've just got to admit that this is an Aboriginal country. Just do it.
3CR is a community radio licence holder. What you hear on community radio is governed by the Community Radio Codes of Practice. The Codes of Practice cover matters relating to program content, including local content, news, current affairs, Australian music, programs for children, and the responsibilities associated with broadcasting by and for the community. They also cover aspects such as community access and participation in the operation of this station. Copies of the code are available from the 3CR website. Go to 3cr.org.au/whoweare.
Estás sintonizando 3CR 855 de tu dial AM.
صدای ما را از رادیو 3CR 855 AM میشنوید.
Kính thưa quý vị, đây là đài phát thanh 3CR trên làn sóng AM 855. Kính mời quý vị đón nghe.
waa tahay waxaad naga dhegaysanaysaan waa raadiyaha jaaliyadaha ee 3CR mawjadiisa 855 AM.
Each week, 3CR broadcasts over 130 programs in 25 languages, supporting communities and viewpoints that you just don't hear about anywhere else. Subscribe to your award-winning multilingual community radio station, 3CR, and help keep these voices on the airwaves. Call the station on 94198377. The number is again 94198377.
Like in Canada and in Australia, they cannot discharge tailings directly into the riverways. But in Porgera, they discharge their tailings in the waterways and they kill us and they say it's okay. You are just being killed for trespassing.
Subscribe to 3CR, bringing you voices and opinions the mainstream media don't dare touch.
They have the exclusive right to extract the mineral below 6 feet, but that exclusive right does not permit them also to kill people.
Who does the killing?
The company has specially arranged security forces.
Subscribe today. Call 9419 8377.
And you're back with the Doing Time show, and we're speaking now with the peer support, one of the peer support team from the Flemington Kensington Community Legal Centre. Hello, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's lovely to have you. I'm wondering if you could just introduce yourself, including your name and title. That would be really useful for listeners. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, no worries. So my name is Sadja. I am part of the Police Accountability Project under the Flemington Kensington Legal Centre, and I'm a peer advocate that basically works with a whole lot of people towards ending racial profiling.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And that makes me feel better because that means that I pronounced your name correctly on air.
Yes, you did.
We're on the same page.
It's a common problem.
Good on you. Now, I'm wondering if you could just describe your title and just talk about the background to what's happening with ending racial profiling, and then move on to what happened with the Milo event last year.
Yeah, so describing my title and then talking about the racial profiling. Sure. So basically my title as a peer advocate within the Flemington-Kempston Legal Centre is to sort of reach out to a lot of community members, a lot of people affected by discriminatory policing, a lot of people that have had experience sort of being isolated by police and basically, had to suffer the aftermath of such, and sort of giving them a platform and a voice to sort of talk about their experiences and to work towards ending it, and holding forums to educate them on their rights that they have when these things do occur, and also just meeting with influential parliamentarians and community leaders, people within Victoria Police to try and tackle racial profiling within the police at an institutional and legal level.
Thanks so much for that.
No worries.
And in fact, we've done some quite extensive coverage on this show in regards to racial profiling, and as you're probably aware, we've interviewed Tamar Hopkins and Anthony Kelly and quite a few people here. But so when you say racial profiling, what does that mean?
That's a really good question. So basically, with regards to racial profiling as a term, it refers to people being profiled as potential criminals or being engaged in potential criminal activity because of the colour of their skin or their appearance or anything that basically sets them apart from the mainstream sort of Anglo-Saxon Caucasian look. So it can be based on their race, on their religion, on their culture.
Okay, that's good. And in fact, there are a number of programs that the legal centre has, isn't it, to actually help and support people, particularly from African communities?
Yes, particularly from African communities, because that's where you sort of see racial profiling prevalent. And I did forget to mention that racial profiling is very much, in the context that we speak about it in, it's coming from police. So it's the way that, I guess, policing is occurring, and there's some sort of unconscious bias being projected onto minority communities, such as African communities. And the Flemington-Kempston Legal Centre does hold a forum, like I mentioned before, and basically go out to educate a lot of the community members about what their rights are, and the fact that they don't always have to, be subject to invasive questioning because, they look like a potential criminal in the eyes of certain police members.
Absolutely, and that would also involve police not investigating police too, and trying to organise independent investigations there. Yeah, so there's quite a lot that's happened there. So do you have much contact with the communities yourself? Like, how do you do advocacy for that community?
So with myself, we have some good contact with different community members. We do engage in advocacy now. Lately, it was last year around September-ish that we released a video that spoke about racial profiling from our perspective. So it was basically the peer advocate team. So there were a bunch of, I think, 5 other peer advocates amongst us, and we spoke about the effects of racial profiling. It's sort of a call to end it to police members. And we've done basically interviews with different journalists talking about the issue, talking about your own experience, getting those who have been through it to talk about their experiences and to sort of vocalise, the concerns at a higher level.
Absolutely, and I believe that the centre has done quite a few reports. The Equality is Not the Same report, and also the Without Suspicion campaign work.
That's right, yeah.
So what does that involve?
So with the campaigns that's been happening, they've been doing a lot of research on the prevalency of racial profiling within Victoria Police in particular, and in the Flemington-Kempston Legal Centre in the Flemington-Kempston area, and particularly towards African Australians. So they they took a lot of testimonies, they did a lot of research. It went on for 2 years from memory, and they found that there were ways to sort of tackle racial profiling. They suggested different law reforms. One of them was particularly stop and search proceedings. They found that African Australians were 1.5 times less likely to actually commit a crime in the Flemington-Kensington area, but were twice as likely to be stopped and questioned by police. So they suggested to have something called a stop and search proceeding, which is where Victoria Police has to hand in a receipt to everyone that they stop and search. And in that receipt, they need to outline very briefly why exactly they stopped that person. So what it's meant to do is, allow the police members to sort of halt and consider their possible unconscious bias, that they might just be stopping this person simply because in their eyes they look like a criminal because of their skin colour. And Victoria Police did implement that for some time, but unfortunately not long enough to see the benefits of it.
Yeah, there's just so much going on, isn't it? And I believe that the police have been involved in helping to initiate that work, but it's interesting that on the receipt they don't actually put the race of that person, do they?
No, they don't. No, exactly. And I think that would be important to a degree because it would form quite a good source when it comes to searching the rates as to, how many times that someone from a particular race will get stopped compared to one from a mainstream.
And I find it interesting too that that the way that things are done, this work is targeted more, not targeted, but is more brought towards new recruits rather than having a look at ongoing police. The ongoing work of police. There's no ongoing training for police, is there? Yeah,
that's a very, very very good observation. It's true. The fact that they think that they can train the police once, just have an annual training session and talk about unconscious bias, not even annual, just a once-off one, and then assume that it'll never come up again is just wrong in so many ways, because at the end of the day, we are constantly exposed to racism, particularly in the media, and so unconscious bias can very much change. So it's important that police have ongoing training tackling that.
Absolutely. Look, that's great. I mean, I think we could talk all night, really. I mean, there's just so much to discuss, isn't there?
I agree.
And in fact, it's always good to interview an advocate such as yourself, who's had some exposure, isn't it?
Yeah.
So were you at the Milo event last year?
So with regards to Milo event, unfortunately I was not there.
That's
but
okay.
I was witness to a lot of the things that happened there through the footage that was proposed, and I spoke to a lot of the members that attended. So I was able to get enough information to then speak at a protest against it.
Yeah, because I feel that our show hasn't yet done enough coverage on this particular topic. I'm wondering, who is Milo exactly, and what happened last year?
Okay, sure, yeah. So basically, Milo, he's a former Breitbart writer. So Breitbart is this quote-unquote news agency. Sorry. That's right. That writes quite nonsense articles that don't have a lot of backing to it.
Sure.
It's very sort of American Fox News agenda focused, I'd say. Trump loves it, so I think that says enough. Yeah. So he's a former writer for that. He's been linked to neo-Nazis and he's mocked sexual abuse victims. He's basically a spokesman for the right, the alt-right. And he's someone that sort of perpetuates a lot of hate and gets a lot of love for that, unfortunately.
And he came to speak in Australia, didn't he?
That's right. So he came to speak in Australia about the things he loves to talk about, which are basically, refugees, Muslims, anti-immigration, all of that. Yeah.
And
so
he was very anti.
He was very, very anti, very, very anti. And I guess what was shocking is that in a suburb that, is sort of strife in multiculturalism, in migrant and refugee populations, to have Milo attending an event in that suburb was quite shocking. And a lot of people believe that it was deliberate, that they chose that location because it is one of the largest migrant refugee populations in Melbourne.
Absolutely. So, go on.
Yeah, no, sorry, go on.
No, keep going.
Oh, just basically what happened at the protest then. There was a lot of residents that, actually more than a lot, mostly all of them, that said that they were chased and they were doused in pepper spray, and that they was actually shoved into their apartment buildings by police. So the police were sort of stopping them from protesting to a degree by putting them in their apartment buildings, even though the main sort of racist hurls, Islamophobic hurls were coming from the right protesters. And basically a lot of them were stalked in order to leave the grounds of the housing estate, which is their home, by police. What was quite concerning was that riot police did storm the protest, and they used pepper spray to subdue the crowd, and particularly on youth. And they were actually quoted as saying, "We can't tell the difference between them and you." Oh. So, yeah, it was quite shocking to that degree. What was really sad is, is that a lot of the students and a lot of the children didn't go to school the next day because they were quite traumatised by it all, and it was happening basically in their homes, in their backyards. And a lot of schools had to actually stop classes that day and sort of debrief the students and give them some psychological training because they were quite affected by that.
Wow. The students that were at the protest?
Yes, the students that were, and not just at the protest, but they were in their house. So a lot of people said that they were coming home from work and that they were actually ambushed as they got off the tram. What? And particularly, because a lot of them did not know that the event was happening there, and obviously that it caused such a concerning response.
So ambushed by the police or by the fascists or both?
Ambushed by the fascists and ambushed to a degree by the police because, the police are trying to, I guess, control the environment there. And so as they came off the trams, there was ambush. And a lot of the women wearing hijabs were particularly targeted by the fascists and by the police.
What is really lacking in media coverage, and also lacking very much in the activist movement, is that there really does need, honestly, to be some workshopping around these issues. Like, what are we going to do about these fascists? Now, I'm not talking about killing them or beating them up. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking more about what are we going to do? Do you know what I'm trying to say? How do we handle... There has to be a universal strategy so that people don't look bad. Do you know what I mean? Where people are hitting each other. And I'm not saying... perhaps I'm sure the fascists do start it. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there's this terrible violence, or in inverted commas, and that's all that the public sees. Mm-hmm. How can we as a movement put out a cohesive and universal message about what's going on here? That's a question I'd like to throw out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. That's a really, really good question, and I wish I had a straightforward answer as well to it. Unfortunately, when you really look at it from a retrospective or like a bird's eye point of view, you see that the people that are responsible or that monitor or control a lot of mainstream media and a lot of outlets which are quite powerful in the sense that they get the message across to millions of people, they don't have the community's best interest. They have power, money, and other things as their goal, and they personally don't really care about communities and about individuals, and particularly minority individuals. So it would be naive for me to say that one day, they will care about us, and one day the people in power will actually help us, because unfortunately the reality is they won't, and it possibly would only get worse. And we see by the likings of our politics and America's politics, it is getting worse. But what we can do, I think, from our perspective and our point of view, is that we have clear intentions, and money and power don't really drive us. It's rather the effect in our communities and the real people in our society and their stories. I think that we can basically use our own skills to sort of empower them as much as possible. So I think I think that the fight really is not even in attaining justice, it's in fighting for justice. So, when these things happen, when you witness that injustice and it makes you grind your teeth and clench your fists, I think the best thing to do is to tell yourself that you can fight it. I think telling yourself that you'll win that fight is a far stretch, but the fact that you fight it and maybe you help 10 people out of the hundreds that are violated against is something that is something that I feel is quite important and, that we should particularly focus on. And so I think in the activists, I'm seeing in whichever way people are trying to, I think they should just continue to move forward with that movement, not let it sort of slow them down to any degree.
Absolutely. And you've got, unfortunately, the police protect the ruling class.
Exactly. Yeah.
Didn't Milo and his cronies pay thousands of dollars?
Yeah,
to the cops?
That's right. They did. Yeah, $50,000. Yeah, $50,000.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, for the protection. So
for the protection.
I mean, and the way that it was, like the footage and the pictures, it showed that it was that the police had their backs against the residents of Flemington, and it was as if they were just there to just support and protect and stand by Milo and his supporters. And it was just the images, were quite startling. I mean, I'm sure maybe the intentions of the police could have been different. That's up to them to justify. But what you saw from a naked eye was quite saddening, to be honest, because these are people's homes we're talking about, it's their backyards we're talking about. And we just had riot police come in and Milo come in and basically, sort of mark their ground and say, we don't care if you're one of the largest migrant populations in Melbourne, we're going to come here and hold and entertain and protect an event which basically discriminates you and makes your life a lot more of a living hell than it already is.
Yeah, that's it. And it's I'm hoping that the people that were pepper sprayed are going to be making complaints against the police. Yeah,
they did. There were a lot of complaints. I think there were around 300 community members or various MPs, the Greens MP, so many letters that got sent out. And actually, it was the Victoria Police Assistant Commissioner, I think Stephen Lenny. They said that basically that they would, sort of work with the community and they would see the significant effect that it had on the residents of Kensington and Flemington from the protest.
Well, we certainly do. The Doing Time show will certainly be watching that space, and hopefully we'll be interviewing Lauren from there or someone from the centre to talk about what's happening up from that follow-up. And there's not much time left, but I just wanted to quickly say to you, and it's lovely to have you actually. It's been really, I've enjoyed your company.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I think that, one of the things is Peter and I actually interviewed a couple of weeks ago, Cott, who is one of the African leaders. Yeah. He's been on the ABC as well. Yeah. And interviewing him about the inflammatory debate over the so-called African youth gang crisis. Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one.
That's another one, isn't it? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts would be that the social aspect and sort of watching the trend of the blatant discrimination is very interesting, especially mainstream media and the way they try and they don't even try and hide it anymore. It's quite obvious. But I just love to see white Caucasian youth that are involved in twice as more crimes get that same coverage when they rob a 7-Eleven or when they vandalise the street or anything like that. So. Yeah, I honestly think it's quite disgusting. I find it hard to take it seriously just because it's so inaccurate at so many levels. Yeah.
Extremely. And please, I'm not here to be unsympathetic to people that have home invasions. It could happen to any of us, But to say that most of them are Sudanese offenders,
that's shocking.
Which actually only represent 1% of offenders.
That's right. Yeah.
According to the state's Crime Statistics Agency, CSA.
Yeah, just came out there.
And in fact, the Tasmanian Greens Senator Nick McCain wrote a dissenting committee report, didn't he? Who said that the error-confirmed migrants had been unfairly victimised.
That's right, yeah. So there are numerous reports, research out there, statistics, all the really hardcore evidence showing that this African crime wave gang does not exist, and yet that is what the media wants to focus on, and that's a story that a lot of people are buying. So I think it's just important to keep talking about the facts.
Yeah, and maybe we should, a whole lot of us should just go to some restaurants, you know?
I think so.
What do you reckon about that? I mean,
yeah, that's a great
Are you scared to go home after a restaurant because you're going to be attacked by a Sudanese?
I honestly, I'm trembling in my shoes.
Come on.
Despite the fact that they have the best food, I eat at their restaurants and then I'm scared of them.
Oh, it's really bad. It just shows that we've got a very, very racist Liberal Party, and and attacks on migrant children.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And what I find super interesting is the way that, when it comes to migrants, when it comes to these ethnicities, we talk about their food and culture. We're all happy to sit there and eat kebabs and eat falafels and eat, curries and everything else. But when it comes to just supporting these minorities, it's just a big fat no.
It really is. And, each time they target different cultures. Now it's that. Like when I was a kid, it was the Italians, and everybody was happy to eat their lasagna and have their spaghetti and then go home, go back to where you came from, mate.
Exactly. I'd love to see kebab strips from Melbourne.
Absolutely.
Who's crying.
Sometimes you have to laugh, otherwise you go mad.
Yeah.
It stops you from burning out,
I 100% agree with you.
Thank you so much for coming onto the program.
No
We've got about
worries.
3 minutes left of our show, but we'll be bringing you back, I hope, for future updates, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely to speak with you.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was Sadja, and she's a peer support advocate from Flemington Kensington Community Legal Centre. It's 4:57. It's goodbye from Marissa.
And Pete. Sorry, I was a bit quiet.
That's all right. And we're going out with our theme song, Black Fellow, White Fella. And we're going to be, and Beyond Zero is up next.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Tune in at the same time from 4 till 5 next Monday. Every Monday.